The galaxy believed that humanity was broken. The Great Wars had burned Earth's colonies, silenced its fleets, and scattered its people across the stars. On distant planets, alien councils laughed at the idea that humans could ever rise again. They called humanity a memory, a defeated species too weak to defend itself. For years, the stars were filled only with their voices, mocking and certain. But silence can be dangerous. Behind silence, something can hide. And in the cold emptiness of deep space, a shadow waited. The shadow was not a fleet, not an army, but something greater. It was a single warship, vast as a mountain, black as iron. Its surface glowed with red-orange veins that pulsed like fire under the skin of a beast. Its spires rose high, sharp like blades cutting the starlight. It drifted quietly in the darkness, hidden from the eyes of the galaxy, until the moment came when silence could no longer last. This warship had a name. It was called Retribution. No one knew who had built it. The aliens thought humanity was too broken to create anything so powerful. They said humans were finished. But the Retribution was not a dream. It was real, and it was waiting. In the outer edges of space, two alien patrol ships moved slowly near a red nebula. Their commanders laughed as they spoke of humans, calling them ghosts and cowards. But then their sensors began to fail. Screens filled with static. Alarms sounded. The stars outside their viewports vanished under a vast shadow. They looked up and their laughter died. The warship appeared without a word. No signal, no warning. Just sighs, silence, and fear. Engines roared awake under its black surface. The glow of its power lit the nebula with blue fire. For a moment, the patrol ships tried to send messages back to their empire, but the messages never reached. A single beam of light cut through space, striking the first ship. It did not explode. It vanished, broken into dust and silence. The second ship tried to run. Another beam struck. Silence again. No one survived. The Retribution drifted forward, leaving no trace of what had happened, as if the stars themselves had erased the memory. But not all memory could be erased. Broken signals carried fragments of the attack, whispers of a warship so large, so fast that no alien vessel could stand against it. The whispers spread like fire, and soon the galaxy heard. At first they laughed again. They said it was rumor, the kind of story desperate survivors tell to give themselves hope. But then more patrols vanished. Merchant fleets disappeared. Outposts on distant moons went dark. And every time the same broken signals escaped into the void. A shadow, a ship, a war machine with no name but death. The galaxy did not yet know its true name. But it would. The council of the great alien empires gathered in their shining halls. They argued, shouted, dismissed the stories. But even in their arrogance, a small seed of fear grew. The silence of humanity was no longer empty. It had shape and power, and it was moving. Far away, deep in the hidden corners of space, the Retribution continued its journey. Inside its halls, long corridors stretched into the dark. No crew walked them. No voices filled them. The ship itself was alive, carrying the will of those who had built it. It was more than steel. It was memory. It was rage. It was the promise that humanity would never truly break. The ship's core glowed brighter with every passing moment, as if it waited for a command, a reason to strike again. It did not need fleets. It did not need armies. Alone, it was enough to shake the galaxy, and so the silence of humanity ended not with words but with fire. The aliens who once mocked now whispered in fear. They asked the same questions again and again. Who built it? Where did it come from? And why now? But the answers did not matter. What mattered was this: the Retribution was awake. And it was not going back to sleep. The galaxy had believed humanity was broken. They believed humans would stay quiet forever. But silence had only been the mask. Behind it, something greater was waiting. And now, as the Retribution moved across the stars, the silence before the storm was over. The storm itself had begun. Whispers move faster than ships. They pass from one traitor to another, from broken soldiers to frightened civilians, until the whole galaxy hears them. And the whispers now carried only one story. A warship too large to understand, a shadow that erased fleets without warning. Some called it myth, some called it madness, but those who had seen fragments of its wrath called it one thing: retribution. In the vast markets of the Orion spires, merchants lowered their voices when speaking of it. A human ship, they said, their eyes darting around. A warship that should not exist. In the mining colonies of the black asteroids, workers swore they had seen flashes of light devour patrol craft in seconds, and in the silent barracks of alien soldiers, fear replaced laughter. They no longer joked about humanity's weakness. They whispered of humanity's return. Still, the powerful rulers did not believe. The Alien Council, gathered in shining chambers on the capital world, dismissed the rumors. Humans are broken, one emperor declared, his scaled fist pounding the table. They cannot build such power. It is lies meant to frighten us. Others nodded, but their eyes betrayed unease. Deep inside, they knew silence never lasts forever. The whispers only grew louder. In the dark edge of the Perseus Rift, a convoy of 6 ships vanished. Only one broken distress call reached the stars. Shadow above us. The sky is gone. Then nothing. In another sector, an entire garrison station disappeared. When explorers arrived weeks later, they found only wreckage spinning in cold silence. The pattern was clear. Something was moving, striking without mercy, leaving behind only fragments and silence. And always, just before the end, survivors spoke of the same thing. A colossal shape, spires like knives, glowing veins of fire beneath black steel. The retribution was no longer a whisper. It was a storm growing closer, yet no one had seen it clearly. No cameras survived, no recordings remained. It was as if the ship itself erased proof of its existence, leaving only memory, rumor, and fear. That mystery made it worse. A known enemy can be faced. A shadow cannot. In a forgotten corner of the galaxy, a small alien transport drifted near a red gas giant. Its crew were smugglers, criminals who feared nothing. But as they drifted, their laughter faded. One by one, their systems died, lights flickered, engines failed, weapons shut down. The crew panicked, rushing to their control panels. Outside, the stars vanished. The shadow fell over them. The smugglers stared out their windows, their faces pale with terror. A wall of black steel stretched across the sky, larger than anything they had ever seen. It moved with silence, slow but unstoppable, its glowing veins burning like rivers of fire. The crew tried to beg. They sent signals into the void, offering surrender, offering anything. But the retribution did not answer. It did not speak. It simply drifted past, its size so vast that their ship looked like dust beside it. For a moment, they thought they had been spared. Then a single pulse of light touched their hull and silence returned. The next day, rumors spread again. This time, the whispers carried something new. The warship does not destroy at random. It chooses. Convoys, garrisons, smugglers. It struck when it wanted, where it wanted. And that meant one thing. It had intelligence. It had purpose. The galaxy trembled with questions. What did it want? Was it controlled by survivors of humanity, or was it something worse? A machine with no master, a weapon that could never be stopped. The Alien Council met again. Their voices shook with anger and fear. One shouted, "If we allow this ship to move unchecked, it will burn us all." Another said, "It is only one vessel. 1,000 of our warships will crush it." They made plans called fleets and promised that retribution would not stand. But far away in the endless dark, the ship moved on, uncaring. Inside its halls, cold metal stretched for miles. Lights glowed faintly on walls lined with symbols of Earth, of humanity. No living crew walked there, but the ship carried their memory. It was not just a weapon. It was a story written in steel, in fire, in silence, and with every battle that story grew. The whispers changed again. No longer did they only speak of fear. Among the scattered human survivors hiding across the stars, the whispers became hope. Exiles who had thought their people forgotten now looked to the void and believed. "It fights for us," they whispered. "Humanity is not broken. The galaxy will learn that we endure." The retribution was not only vengeance, it was a signal, a promise, a warning. And so whispers spread across the stars until every world, every empire, every ruler knew the truth. Silence was over. Something was coming, and the galaxy would never be the same. The galaxy could not stay silent any longer. Too many fleets had vanished. Too many stations had gone dark. The whispers of a single human warship were no longer whispers, they were truth. And truth could not be ignored. On the shining capital world of the Orion Dominion, the Alien Council gathered again. Their halls glittered with crystal and steel, but no brightness could hide their fear. One voice shouted, It has already destroyed convoys, outposts, and patrols. Soon it will reach our worlds. We cannot let this shadow move unchecked. Another rose in anger. It is only one vessel. We are thousands. If humanity believes this ship makes them strong again, let us show them they are wrong. And so the decision was made. Across the galaxy, fleets were called. War drums echoed through the stars. Cruisers, destroyers, and battleships from dozens of empires gathered into one massive armada. A storm of firepower meant to crush the lone warship called Retribution. When the fleets assembled, their numbers darkened the skies. Thousands of ships stood ready, their weapons primed, their commanders confident. Against them was one ship, silent, drifting, waiting. The order was given. The armada advanced. At first, the void was filled with light. Missiles, plasma beams, railfire, all the fury of a galaxy unleashed in a single storm. The stars themselves seemed to burn. For a moment, the commanders smiled. Nothing could survive such fire. But then, the light cleared, and the Retribution was still there. Its black surface glowed brighter now, the veins of fire pulsing as if alive. Shields of light shimmered around it, bending the fury of thousands of weapons. Where beams struck, they faded. Where missiles landed, they vanished. The ship did not break. It endured. Then slowly it answered. A single lance of energy erupted from its core, cutting through the void. It tore across the battlefield, striking 3 battleships at once. They vanished in silence, erased from existence. Panic spread through the alien armada. Commands filled the comms. Spread out. Attack from all sides. But the Retribution moved. For something so vast, it should have been slow, yet it slid through the stars with terrifying speed. Its weapons fired again, beams of light so bright they blinded sensors, so sharp they cut through steel as if it were paper. Whole squadrons fell in seconds. The aliens fought back with everything they had. Hundreds of ships closed in, firing together. The void shook with explosions. The Retribution's shields flared, dimmed, then blazed stronger than before. Each time the armada thought they had wounded it, the ship grew brighter, its rage feeding its power. Inside command centers, alien generals watched in horror. They had never seen such technology. Some shouted, "This is impossible. No human could build this." Others whispered the truth they did not want to admit. Humanity had built it in silence, in shadows, while the galaxy mocked them. And now silence had turned to vengeance. The battle stretched on, but it was not a battle. It was a slaughter. The Retribution cut through fleets like a blade through smoke. Whole wings of cruisers burned to dust. Flagships that had ruled empires fell without a sound. The survivors tried to flee, but even retreat brought no safety. A single pulse from the warship's core reached across light years, striking them down as they ran. Only fragments escaped, carrying with them the story of what had happened. In less than one day, the greatest armada ever assembled had been broken by one ship. The galaxy shook with the news. Some refused to believe it, some wept. Some trembled in silence, afraid their worlds would be next. The alien council fell into chaos. Their leaders shouted, blamed each other, and demanded answers. But there was only one answer, one truth that none of them wanted to face. Humanity was not broken. Humanity had returned, and the warship called Retribution was proof. In hidden colonies, human survivors heard the news. For the first time in years, they lifted their heads with pride. They thought we were gone, they whispered. They thought we would never rise again. But now they know. Humanity does not bow. Humanity does not break. The Retribution drifted onward, its surface glowing like the heart of a star. It did not speak, but its silence was louder than any words. It had shown the galaxy that one ship could stand against thousands. It had shown them that silence was never weakness, it was preparation. Now every empire in the galaxy waited in fear, asking the same question. Where will it strike next? And deep inside the void, the warship carried its answer. Not yet. Not until the galaxy truly understood what humanity had become. The storm was not over. It had only begun. The galaxy could not understand it. How could one ship, no matter how large, stand against thousands? How could humanity, a people declared broken and defeated, unleash such destruction? The answers did not come from the alien council. Their halls shook with anger and fear, but they found no truth there. The answers lay deeper, hidden in the silence humanity had kept for generations. Long before the Retribution revealed itself, Earth had been dying. The wars had crushed its colonies, burned its fleets, and silenced its allies. Billions were lost. Survivors scattered across broken stations and barren moons. The galaxy looked at them and saw weakness. But weakness was not what lived inside humanity. What lived inside was endurance. In the hidden shadows of space, far beyond the maps of alien empires, a plan had begun. A secret passed through whispers, through families, through those who refused to bow. They could not rebuild fleets. They could not stand in open war. But they could build something else. They built the Retribution. It was not the work of one generation. It was the work of many. Parents passed blueprints to children. Children grew into builders, engineers, dreamers. On hidden asteroids and hollowed moons, in stations masked by silence, they worked in secret. Each piece of the ship was carried in fragments. Each weapon built in darkness, each engine tested where no eyes could see. The galaxy mocked them, believing humanity was broken. But while the galaxy laughed, humans built. They built with hands scarred by war, with minds sharpened by loss, with hearts heavy with rage. The Retribution was not just steel and fire, it was sacrifice. Every life lost had shaped it. Every tear shed had given it power. Generations died never seeing it complete, but they never stopped building. They told their children the same words: one day the galaxy will learn. One day silence will end. One day our ship will rise. And so when the last piece was placed, when the final core was lit, the Retribution was not simply a warship. It was the memory of a species that refused to vanish. The ship carried their rage, yes, but it also carried something more. It carried their will. The galaxy thought silence meant defeat. Humanity's silence had meant preparation. Inside the Retribution, long corridors stretched through endless steel. On the walls were etched symbols of Earth, marks of continents and cities that no longer existed, names of ships that had fallen in war, names of colonies turned to dust, names of families who had given everything. The ship was a graveyard and a monument both. It carried the past with it, and it promised the future. And it had been waiting. Waiting for the moment when the galaxy grew too proud, too certain, too cruel. Waiting until silence was no longer enough. That moment had come. Now, as the alien fleets lay broken, survivors fled to their rulers with stories of terror. They spoke of a ship that moved like a shadow, that burned with light no technology could explain, that carried a will too strong to be denied. The rulers tried to comfort themselves with lies. It cannot last, they said. One ship cannot defeat us all. But the whispers spread faster than their denials. The whispers told the truth. The Retribution was not a weapon of chance. It was a weapon of design. The human survivors across scattered worlds heard those whispers too. And for the first time in years, their silence turned into hope. On hidden colonies, children looked up at the stars with pride. Old soldiers, broken and tired, lifted their heads and whispered, "We are not forgotten." But even as hope rose, fear grew. The Retribution was more than hope. It was also wrath. Its silence was heavy, its movements unstoppable. No one knew its true purpose. Would it strike only those who had mocked humanity? Or would its fire burn across all empires, innocent or guilty? The galaxy asked, but the ship gave no answer. It drifted onward, its engines glowing with the power of centuries. Its silence was louder than any words, and then for the first time it spoke. Not with a voice, but with a signal. A broken transmission spread across the void, reaching every listening ear. It carried no music, no threat, only words written in cold steel. Humanity does not forget. Humanity does not forgive. Humanity does not break. The galaxy trembled. Worlds fell silent. Armies hesitated. And the survivors of Earth, scattered and hidden, wept with pride. The secret was out. Humanity had never been broken. Humanity had only been waiting. The Retribution was the proof, and now the galaxy knew what silence had been hiding all along. The storm was here, and it was only beginning. The galaxy had seen war before, but never like this. Never a single ship that could silence thousands. Never a silence that carried such weight. Everywhere the whispers of retribution filled the stars. It was no longer rumor. It was no longer doubt. It was truth written in fire. On border worlds, families huddled in fear as fleets withdrew from their skies. Soldiers once proud stood restless, unwilling to face the shadow. Rulers who once mocked humanity now met in silence, their voices low, their pride broken. They asked the same question again and again. What does the Retribution want? But the ship gave no answer. It did not broadcast demands. It did not send envoys. It only moved forward, slow and unshaken, drifting through the void like a storm that could not be stopped. One night, in the great council hall of the Orion Dominion, leaders of a dozen empires gathered again. Their crystal ceilings glittered with false light, but no shine could hide their fear. Some shouted for peace, others for war. A few begged to send envoys to the humans to kneel before them, to admit what the galaxy had done. But their arguments ended when a single shadow fell across the sky. The Retribution had arrived. It appeared in orbit, silent and vast, its spires cutting into the starlight. Below, cities trembled. Entire populations looked up at the night sky and saw only steel and fire. For the first time, the empires who ruled the stars felt powerless. Warships rushed to defend the capital world. Thousands lifted into the void, forming lines of defense. But none dared fire first. They knew what had happened to the Great Armada. They knew what silence could do. For hours, the Retribution simply drifted, its glow burning brighter, its silence pressing heavy on every heart. And then the silence broke. A signal spread across the galaxy. It was not loud. It was not long. It was simple. We are humanity. You thought we were broken. You thought we would vanish. But we endured. We remember. We rise. The words echoed through every comm, every station, every world. No one escaped them. Even the smallest outposts heard the voice of the Retribution. And then came the final words, colder than steel. This is your warning. Do not test us again. Humanity does not break. The signal ended. Silence returned. But the silence was not the same. It was not mocking. It was not weak. It was fear. The Retribution did not fire on the capital world. It did not destroy the fleets waiting to die before it. Instead, it turned slowly, engines blazing, and vanished back into the void. The galaxy trembled. Some rulers wept in secret. Some vowed revenge, swearing their empires would never kneel. But none sent their fleets again. None dared chase the shadow. They knew the truth. One ship had undone them all. In the hidden corners of space, scattered human survivors lifted their heads. On mining colonies, on broken stations, in exile camps where hope had once died, they cried and smiled at the same time. Their people had spoken. Their silence was over. Humanity was no longer a ghost. The Retribution had carried their name back into the stars. And now the stars themselves trembled, because every world knew one thing. If humanity could build one warship in silence, perhaps they could build more. Perhaps the galaxy had not seen their full strength yet. Perhaps the storm was still growing. The Retribution faded into the dark, its glow slowly vanishing. But its memory remained. Every empire, every ruler, every soldier, every child remembered the sight of it, the sound of its words, the fire it carried, and in that memory fear lived. The galaxy would never forget. Humanity had been broken once. It would not be broken again. And in the endless silence of the stars, the Retribution drifted on, watching, waiting, a promise carved into steel. The storm was not finished. It had only begun.